and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and I wanted to welcome all of you to another installment of Monologue Monday here on my YouTube channel. Monologue Monday. In this episode of Monologue Monday, I wanted to talk about something that I haven't really brought to light on my channel up to this point, and that is the implementation of all of these new artificial intelligence tools that are making their way into the public. There's a great deal of topics regarding the artificial intelligence tools that are making their way into the public right now, far too much for one episode of Monologue Monday. So for the sake of brevity, I'm going to keep this episode relatively concise with my personal opinions on how these tools are going to affect the creativity of the general populace. So with all of that being said, let's get right into this episode of Monologue Monday. Okay, so like I said, this specific episode is going to cover specifically how these AI tools are going to affect the creativity of, young adults now and, young individuals that are going to essentially grow up with all of these tools at their disposal. Now, I do just want to clarify that I'm not any kind of AI guru or anything like that where I'm, all of my life, my entire life, 24/7 is all on these tools and how to use them and how to trick them, whatever it may be. There are certainly individuals who are doing that, especially the companies. They are actively pushing their these systems to their limits. I'm just an individual who is kind of going along for the ride, right? Utilizing them where I see the need to, and basically on standby when new developments come up, right? When things get better, when things get worse, when there's different AI things in the news and so on. But the way that I understand, AI as far as an individual that uses it as much as I do, is that generally speaking, it's been around. A certain form of artificial intelligence has been around for some time, but within recent years, I say we, not me, these different companies, OpenAI, Microsoft, and so on, are trying to get it to the point where it can actually create things on its own, right? Or that it can create things with little information from the user, right? Little input. Whereas before, I felt like and this is my personal opinion, AI tools were basically, if you gave them a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you took out the middle number, you took out 3, they could put 3 in there, and they would know next time that if 3 is missing to put it back in there. Now we're basically saying, maybe giving them 1 and 5, and then they're putting everything in between there plus, up to 10 or 15, something like that. I know that's a relatively rudimentary example, but that's kind of the way I interpret it, where we're I said we again. It's not me, but we as humans are trying to get it to the point where we can essentially tell this tool to do something for us, and it can do it start to finish. We can tell them to draw something, right? And we can describe it with words, and it'll actually fill it in with colors. And there's a certain amount of emotion that goes into drawing as well, and if they can capture that with words, it would be quite remarkable. So that's kind of a good segue into the main topic for this video, which is creativity and how it's going to change creativity, at least in my opinion, for individuals actively using it right now, such as myself, and younger kids, right, who are currently in elementary school and younger, that are going to basically, when they get into the working era and growing up until then, are going to have it right at their disposal. So as far as individuals like myself who kind of use it somewhat passively at this point within their day-to-day life and experiment with it and so on, as far as creativity goes, I think it is in a really good position to augment and assist us with whatever we need. And basically what I mean by this is, if you take an individual, maybe if we're talking about art, for example, that is already really developed in different programs and visual effects, special effects, and so on, and you would give them some type of tool that is supposed to, essentially take their job, they can use it in a way where they can get a lot of work done faster that would have normally taken them 10 hours. Now it takes them, 1 hour using this kind of tool. So they can basically use the knowledge that they've already developed and speed up the process. And I think this trend is very similar in other disciplines as well. Think coding, for example, where it is, in my opinion, nearly impossible to know everything about every coding language and how they interact and this and that and this and that. But if you would have a tool that, does have all of that information, you can utilize the experience that you've had over, your working careers, over your education, and this tool will, like the artist, the visual effects artist in the first example, speed up the process, right? So if you know 80% hypothetically of, all of the code that you need to know, this tool will help you, get that last 20% so you can get projects done, you can get things going, and it's really just going to assist you with something that you already know how to do pretty well. So I think these two examples of individuals who already have a pretty fundamental knowledge of a discipline, I think these tools are very beneficial, right? Because it basically allows us to get rid of some of the busy work that we normally may have had if we had not had these tools. And sometimes these tools can even teach us to do things in a newer way that might be a little bit speedy as well. So as far as an employee goes, if you are an employee, and hopefully you are, these tools are probably in your best interest. Ideally, they don't take your job completely, but I hope that they would be there to an extent where they can make you a more efficient employee, right? They can make you look better as an employee, to cut down time on miscellaneous tasks and hopefully allow you to take on bigger endeavors, within your workplace. Now, switching to the other side of the spectrum, these young individuals, right? These kids in middle school now, these kids in elementary school now, who, without any kind of doubt, when they are, in high school and college in some years, these AI tools will be very robust, right? They're probably going to be pretty scary. The pace that they're kind of moving at with. Becoming human-like, where you can tell it to do something and it understands what you're saying. It's actually, almost uncanny at some times, and I think it's only going to continue to become that way. But for these individuals, and this is of course my own personal opinion, I think the creativity is going to be at a loss for these individuals, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. So if you recall the first two examples that I gave, where we have a VFX artist, a visual effects artist, and someone who's working on code, where they both have a pretty fundamental knowledge of what needs to be done, but these tools basically push them past the finish line a little bit faster on different projects and so on. These individuals, if you think about it, they have gone through the motions of learning the entire discipline that they're in, right? VFX or code, whatever it is. And these tools are, like I said, there to provide that extra push, right? To provide a little bit of insight that they may not have learned, or a new pieces of information that have come up that have been too busy to learn about. But if you take someone who is just getting into it, right? What I've noticed with these tools and young individuals using these tools is that the kids will generally leave the creativity to the tool, right? So they'll basically tell the tool what needs to be done, and the AI tool will ideally, give them the result that they're looking for. But what this does, in my personal opinion, is that it takes out the work. It takes out the thought process, or the part of your brain where you need to problem solve, right? You need to learn things. And I think this intuitively makes sense. And I'm by no means any kind of, neuroscientist or psychologist or learning expert or anything like that. But I feel like if you're not using certain regions of your brain that are associated with problem solving, with retaining information, eventually those will atrophy, right? Which is essentially, basically, as far as muscles go, atrophying is when they shrink because they're not used. And I think the same can be for neurological tissue as well, where if we're not using these parts of our brain, they'll get smaller, and eventually they'll get to the point where they're pretty much useless. So take these young individuals, right? These kids in school who are, working on problems, trying to do this, trying to do that. If you give them something to solve the problem for them without any kind of work, right? So if a kid has a tool and they don't know how to do something in science or whatever it is, and they just type in, what is this, right? Looking for an answer. Obviously, the tool is going to spit it out to them. And that's how these tools want to be developed, right? They want to be problem solvers, but if you take away the problem solving aspect of it, or the majority of it in this case, that this individual will expect the answer every single time. So if they're doing that throughout their entire learning, the learning period in their life, which is 0 to 25, 25 years old or something like that, I think is to the point where our brains kind of stop developing in that sense. And if they're doing this their whole life, without these tools, these individuals will inevitably become helpless, right? They won't be able to function without these tools. Whereas the individuals in the early example, right, the individuals kind of in my position right now who have gone through the motions the old school way and are using these tools as an assistant, can solve problems without them, right? Certainly there are difficult problems, very, very difficult problems that we might need other expertise or a tool like this, for example. But going through the motions of learning, of retaining information, of problem solving, is how we, develop mentally, right? It's how we develop problem solving skills, and inevitably how we develop creativity as well. So if we take away that learning process and we give, essentially the example is you give a man a fish or a fishing pole, and if you're just giving the man the fish every single time, he's not going to know, what to do when the fish stop coming. And as a personal anecdote, I have seen something like this within a very close individual to me as well, who is kind of in this younger age group where everything, if they have any kind of question, it's always, go to a keyboard, right? It's never maybe sit down and think about something or, ask someone. It's always go to a keyboard, type in the problem, whatever comes up, whatever the computer spits at you, is going to be the answer. And I think this is kind of the direction that, these tools are going to, that they're going to move to. And I don't know if it's generally the best thing as far as creativity goes, because like I said, if you take away this whole learning process of going through the motions, going through the difficult part of problem solving, you're going to inevitably have less creative individuals, because creativity is what leads to solving problems, right? The tools certainly are there, in my opinion, to assist with it. But when you become solely reliant on these type of tools, as I think that's the direction that we're headed to, and unfortunately. But in that case, I can foresee personally a less creative group of individuals that are going to be, becoming adults in the near future. So there you have it. Those are a few of my thoughts as to the direction that creativity is going to go towards with the development of these advanced AI tools. But of course, I want to hear from the viewers as well. What do you guys think the future holds as far as creativity goes for these AI tools? Please let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, if you've made it this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for your time. I do hope you were able to take something away from this video. And as always, happy financing.